Hello everyone. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and let's go.
Trust is a structure that takes decades to build, but only a few seconds of silence to compromise. He thought he was attending a social gathering with his partner of 25 years, unaware that the shadow of a betrayal had already been cast. Pay close attention to the subtle red flags in this case study, as ignoring them could cost you everything you've ever worked for. Educational purpose only. The heat in Phoenix does not just sit on you, it tries to crush you. It was 6 p.m. and the thermometer on the dash of my Ford F-150 was screaming 112 degrees. Even with the AC cranking at max, I could feel the sweat starting to itch under my collar. But the real suffocation was not the weather. It was the silence sitting in the passenger seat. Karen had not said a word since we left the driveway of the house we'd spent 2 decades paying off. She was staring out the window, her reflection ghosting over the glass. She looked incredible, and that was the problem. She was wearing a silk slip dress, the kind that costs more than a set of high-end power tools, and it left very little to the imagination. It was a deep emerald green that made her eyes pop, but it was cut so low and slit so high that it felt less like an outfit and more like an invitation. "We're just going to the Millers, Karen," I said, my voice sounding gravelly even to my own ears. "It's a backyard barbecue, not a red carpet premiere in Vegas." She did not even turn her head. She just adjusted her gold bracelet, the metal clinking softly. "It's Scottsdale, Paul. People actually put in an effort there. You should try it sometime, instead of wearing those same cargo shorts and work boots every weekend." I gripped the steering wheel. My knuckles were white. For 25 years, I'd provided. I'd built a business from 1 truck to a fleet of 12. I'd made sure she never had to look at a price tag at Whole Foods or Nordstrom. And yet, lately, I felt like I was just the guy who signed the checks while she looked for a different kind of thrill. We pulled up to the Millers' estate. It was one of those sprawling desert mansions, with more square footage than a Home Depot, and a xeriscaped front yard that probably cost $50,000. As soon as the valet took my keys, the smell hit me. Expensive bourbon, chlorine from the pool, and the heavy, floral scent of night-blooming jasmine mixed with the dry, toasted air of the Arizona night. The party was already in full swing. Men in tailored linen shirts and women with perfect Botox smiles drifted around the infinity pool. I felt like a bull in a china shop. I'm a big guy, my hands are calloused, and I do not know how to small talk about Napa Valley wine tours. "Paul, Karen, you made it!" Rick Miller shouted, waving us over. He was already 3 drinks deep. Karen did not wait for me. She glided toward the bar like she owned the place. I followed a few paces behind, watching the way the silk of her dress moved against her skin. Then I saw him. Mark. Mark was one of those guys who consulted for a living, which usually meant he had a lot of money and no visible means of earning it. He was leaning against the outdoor kitchen, a glass of Macallan in his hand. When Karen walked up, his eyes did not go to her face. They went everywhere else. I saw the look they exchanged. It was not a, "Hey, good to see you" look. It was a, "I've been thinking about what we did last time" look. It was a flash of shared secrets, a jagged bolt of electricity that hit me right in the gut. My instincts, the ones that tell me when a foundation is cracked before the walls even start to lean, went into overdrive. Something was very, very wrong. By 11 p.m., the atmosphere had shifted. The casual chatter about the stock market and local school boards had turned into something darker, fueled by too much tequila and the oppressive desert heat. We were all gathered in the sunken living area near the pool house. "All right, everybody, Time for the tradition, Rick announced, holding up a large crystal bowl. The Key Club rakes it in. But tonight, we're adding a twist. Truth or dare rules apply. I felt a pit form in my stomach. I had heard about these Scottsdale parties. They started with expensive appetizers and ended with things people regretted on Monday morning. I looked at Karen. She was flushed, her skin glowing under the patio lights. She looked younger, hungrier. Everyone threw their keys into the bowl. I dropped the fob to my F-150 with a heavy thud. It felt like I was handing over my soul. The game started off tame. A few truths about embarrassing high school stories. A few dares that involved jumping into the pool fully clothed. But then it was Karen's turn. Rick pulled a key. It was Mark's, a silver Porsche fob. Karen, truth or dare? Rick grinned wickedly. Truth, she whispered, her voice smoky. Tell us, Rick leaned in. What is the one thing you've been craving that your husband just can't not seem to build for you? The circle went quiet. I felt like I was under a spotlight. Karen looked at me, then her gaze drifted to Mark. She licked her lips, a slow, deliberate movement. I crave the feeling of being truly seen, she said, her voice dripping with subtext. Not as a wife, or a mother, or a part of a project. I want someone who is not afraid to get their hands dirty just to feel the heat. The air left the room. It was a direct slap to my face, delivered with a smile. Mark did not say a word, but he tapped his glass 3 times with his ring. Clink, clink, clink. I watched Karen. She adjusted her gold bracelet, sliding it up her forearm. It was a sequence. I'd seen guys at the casino do this. It was a signal. She glanced toward the guest house, a small, flawed, modern structure at the edge of the property, shielded by thick oleander bushes. I took a long pull of my drink, the ice rattling against my teeth. My chest felt tight, like someone was tightening a ratchet strap around my heart. I was not going to play the fool. I was going to wait. I was going to see exactly how far she would go. Next round! Action! Rick shouted, but the energy had already fragmented. Couples were drifting off into the shadows of the garden. I saw Mark stand up and head toward the bar, but he did not stop there. He vanished behind the stone pillars of the outdoor kitchen. 30 seconds later, Karen stood up, smoothing her dress. I'm going to find a restroom, she murmured to the woman next to her. She did not even look at me. I gave them 5 minutes. I sat there, counting the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. My mind was a blur of images, 25 years of memories. Driving her home from the hospital after our daughter was born. The first Christmas in our house when we did not have furniture and ate pizza on the floor. All of it felt like it was being erased by a giant, dirty sponge. I stood up. My movements were slow and deliberate. I did not head for the main house. I walked out toward the pool, then veered off into the darkness of the landscaped bushes. I moved quietly, the way you learn to move when you're checking a job site at night for thieves. The guest house was a glass-walled box, beautiful and cold. The lights were off, but the glow from the pool reflected off the interior surfaces. I approached from the side, staying in the shadows of the palms. I reached the window and stopped. The moonlight was enough to see. Through the glass, I saw the emerald green dress pooled on the floor like a kill. Karen was draped over the edge of a leather sofa, her back to me. Mark was there, his hands everywhere they should not be. The way she moved, the way she arched her back. It was a version of my wife I had not seen in a decade. She was not just a participant. She was the architect of this betrayal. Everything I had built, the trust, the security, the future was being burned to the ground in that room. I did not feel sadness. I felt a cold, hard clarity. It was the feeling you get when a structure is too far gone to save, and the only thing left to do is a controlled demolition. I did not reach for my phone to take a video. I did not need evidence for myself. I knew what I saw. I wanted the impact. I walked around to the heavy oak door of the guest house. I did not knock. I leaned back and drove my boot right next to the handle. The frame splintered with a sound like a gunshot. The door flew open, hitting the interior wall with a deafening crack. The scream Karen let out was primal. She scrambled to pull a throw blanket over herself, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen before. Mark jumped back, fumbling with his belt, looking like the pathetic coward he was. "Paul, it's not what it looks like. It was the game," she shrieked. I did not say a word. I walked into the room. The air smelled like her perfume and his sweat. It was nauseating. Mark tried to step forward, trying to find his tough guy persona. "Hey, man, let's be civil," he started, his voice cracking. I stepped into his personal space. I'm 6'2", and I've spent my life lifting heavy machinery. He was a guy who went to Soul Cycle. I looked him dead in the eyes, my face inches from his. I did not hit him. That would be too easy. I just stared until I saw his pupils dilate and his hands start to shake. "She's all yours, Mark," I said, my voice as cold as a January morning. "I hope you like paying for luxury SUVs and Greek island vacations. You're taking over the mortgage on her soul. Congratulations." I turned to Karen. She was sobbing now, the siren act completely dissolved. "Get up," I told her. "We're leaving. Now." I walked back out to the main party. The music was still playing, but people had heard the door. They were staring. I walked straight to the center of the patio, where Rick and the others were standing. "The game is over," I announced, my voice booming across the water. "Karen and Mark won. They're in the guest house celebrating. I'm going home to start the paperwork." The silence that followed was heavy. I saw the pity in some eyes and the shock in others. I did not care. I walked to the valet, got my truck, and waited at the end of the driveway. 10 minutes later, Karen appeared, her hair a mess, her dress wrinkled, looking like a ghost. She got in the truck, and for the first time in 25 years, I felt absolutely nothing for the woman sitting next to me. The drive back to our house was silent. Karen tried to start a few times. "Paul, please." I was drunk. He seduced me. But I just turned up the radio. I did not want to hear her voice. It sounded like static to me. As soon as we crossed the threshold of our home, the project was officially over. I went straight to the office and sat down at my MacBook. "What are you doing?" she asked, standing in the doorway, clutching her heels in her hand. "Securing the perimeter," I said. I logged into our Chase account. I moved every cent of the liquid cash into an escrow account my lawyer had told me about months ago when I first started having suspicions. I canceled the secondary cards on my business account. I changed the password to the Netflix, the Amazon Prime, and the gate code. "You cannot do this. That's my money too," she yelled, her voice getting shrill. "Technically, it's the bank's money until the house is paid off. And since you decided to break the contract of this marriage, I'm exercising the exit clause." I walked to the master closet. It was a walk-in, the size of a bedroom, filled with her designer bags and shoes. I started grabbing armfuls of it. I did not fold them. I did not care. I threw them into the garage. "Paul, stop! You're being a monster." "No," I said, tossing a pair of $800 boots onto the concrete. I'm being a businessman. I'm cutting my losses on a bad investment. I finished with the last of her suitcases. I pushed them toward her. The guest room at your mother's house is still open, I assume. Or maybe Mark has a spare sofa?
But you are not sleeping here. You cannot kick me out of my own house.
Watch me. I took her by the arm, firmly, but without hurting her, and led her to the garage door. I stepped back and hit the button on the wall. As the heavy door began to slide down, I looked at her one last time. I'll see you in court, Karen. I went back inside and opened my Nest app. I changed the door codes. I heard her pounding on the wood for 20 minutes before she finally gave up. I sat in the dark living room and called a 24-hour cleaning service. I told them I wanted the house scrubbed from top to bottom at 6 a.m. I wanted every trace of her gone. 2 days later, the reality hit Karen. I knew this because my lawyer told me her lawyer was already calling, screaming about spousal abandonment. But Karen did not go to her mother's right away. She went to the only place she thought she had left. She showed up at Mark's condo in North Scottsdale. She had 2 suitcases and a heart full of delusions. She thought that because they'd shared a few thrilling months of sneaking around, he was going to step up and be her savior. She rang the bell. Mark opened the door wearing a bathrobe. Behind him, the place was a mess of empty pizza boxes and workout gear. Karen?
What are you doing here? He asked, not moving to let her in.
Paul kicked me out, Mark. He found out everything. He blocked the accounts. I have nowhere to go. She looked at him with those big, tearful eyes that used to work on me every time. Mark leaned against the doorframe and exhaled a long, tired breath.
Look, Karen, that night at the Millers,
that was supposed to be fun, a thrill. I did not sign up for a happily ever after with a woman who just got nuked by her husband. But you said you loved me. You said he did not appreciate me. Everyone says that stuff when they're trying to get into someone's silk dress, Karen. Grow up. He looked past her at her suitcases. I cannot have you staying here. Paul is a powerful guy in this city. He handles half the municipal contracts. I'm not ruining my reputation and my business because you could not keep your truth or dare quiet. Mark, please, I have no money. He shut it all down. Then call your mom, Mark said coldly. And do not call me again. This got way too real, way too fast. He closed the door. The sound of the deadbolt clicking home was the final nail in the coffin of her fantasy. She stood there in the hallway of a luxury condo building, realized she was just a weekend hobby to a man she'd traded her entire life for. The divorce proceedings were a dogfight. We were in a wood-paneled courtroom in downtown Phoenix, the sun beating against the high windows. Karen's lawyer was a shark. He played the victim card hard. He showed photos of the splintered door at the guest house. He talked about how I financially strangled a woman of 25 years, leaving her homeless in the desert night. He called me unstable, aggressive, a toxic masculine presence. The judge, a stern woman who had seen 1,000 versions of this story, looked at me. Mr. Miller, do you deny that you threw her belongings into a garage and changed the locks without a court order? I do not deny it, Your Honor, I said, standing tall. I saw my wife of 2 decades in the arms of another man in a house full of our friends. I reacted like a man who just saw his life's work set on fire. I won't not apologize for protecting what's mine. Because of the laws in Arizona, a community property state, and my aggressive reaction, the judge was not entirely on my side. To end it quickly, to keep her from dragging it out for years and bleeding my business dry with legal fees, I had to make a choice. I signed the paper. I gave her a lump sum, not enough to live like a queen, but enough to get her out of my life forever. I also took on the bulk of the remaining mortgage and the debt we'd accumulated during her siren phase. My lawyer told me I was giving up too much. It's just money, I told him. I can build more money. I cannot build more time. The final day came. I stood on the porch of the house. It was 105 degrees, a typical afternoon. A rusted-out 2012 Buick pulled into my driveway. Karen's mother, a tired-looking woman from a small town in Oklahoma, got out. Karen walked out of the house for the last time. She was not wearing emerald silk anymore. She was wearing leggings and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked every bit of her 50 years. The spark was gone. The siren had drowned. She stopped at the bottom of the steps and looked up at me. I did not move. I did not offer to help with her bag. "You really hate me, don't you?" she asked. "No, Karen," I said. "I just do not know you. You're just someone I used to work with on a project that failed." She got into the Buick. Her mother did not even look at me. She just put the car in reverse. I watched them back out and drive down the long, palm-lined street until they were just a speck in the heat haze. I walked back inside. The house was quiet. It was empty. It was perfect. I have a lot of work to do and a lot of debt to pay off. But for the first time in 25 years, the foundation is solid. I'm standing on my own 2 feet, and this time, I'm building something that's just for me. The protagonist's main mistake was not his reaction, but his long-term denial of the shifting dynamics in his marriage. When a partner starts treating your stability as a cage rather than a foundation, the breach of trust has already begun. First, always maintain separate financial safety nets and understand that community property laws can punish even the victim of a betrayal. Second, never let nostalgia cloud your judgment when your intuition is screaming that the foundation is cracked. How would you have handled that moment in the guest house? Write your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more honest case studies on modern relationships.